I cheated on my husband. With a stranger I met online. I have a perfect life. Or at least that's the picture I've painted for the world to see. A loving husband, a charming two-story house in a quiet suburb near Lyon, a stable career as a freelance graphic designer with clients across France, and all the comforts I'd dreamed of since I was a young girl sketching in my childhood bedroom. I'm 33, married to Mark for 7 years, a man who's been my anchor through every storm. Financial struggles after I lost a big contract, the tension with my mother over holiday plans, the quiet, aching grief of trying and failing to conceive a child. We met at a wine festival in Bordeaux 8 years ago, a warm September evening where he accidentally spilled a glass of Bordeaux red on my white sundress, his face flushing with embarrassment as he stammered apologies. That crooked smile of his, those hazel eyes sparkling with charm, melted my defenses, and by the end of the night, we were dancing under the stars, his hand warm on my waist. A year later he proposed on that same vineyard, down on one knee with a ring that caught the moonlight, and 2 years after we married in a small chapel, the air heavy with the scent of roses, his vows spoken with a sincerity that made my heart swell and my eyes water. Mark is everything I could want. Kind, attentive, the kind of husband who cooks me chicken stew on Fridays with a glass of rose, who leaves little notes in my sketchbook telling me I'm his muse, who pulls me into his arms when I'm stressed about a deadline or a late-night client call. He's the man who knows I take my coffee with a hint of cinnamon, who surprises me with peonies on random Tuesdays, who holds me close when the silence of our empty nursery haunts me. But late at night when he's asleep beside me, his breathing steady and soft, his arm draped carelessly over the edge of the bed, I found myself craving something more. Something wilder, something that set my skin ablaze, something that Mark's gentle, familiar love no longer ignited. I never thought I'd actually do it. I told myself it was just a fantasy, a secret thrill to break the monotony, a flicker of desire I'd indulge in the privacy of my mind while the world slept. But fantasies have a way of taking root, of growing into something uncontrollable, and I met him, Lucas, and crossed a line that haunts me every moment I'm not distracted by the life I've so carefully constructed. It started as harmless chatting in a private online forum, a hidden corner of the internet I stumbled upon one sleepless night, my laptop casting a blue glow across our darkened bedroom as Mark snored softly beside me. I'd been restless, unable to sleep, my mind racing with the weight of another failed pregnancy test hidden in the bathroom trash. I created a username, Hidden Moon, and began posting about my frustrations, my longing for excitement, my need to feel desired again after years of feeling like a shadow of the woman I once was. That's where I met him, living shadow. A man whose words drew me in like a moth to a flame, his messages dripping with a confidence that made my pulse quicken and my cheeks flush. "You seem like a woman who deserves to be adored," he wrote one night, his words smooth and seductive, and I blushed in the dark, my fingers trembling as I typed a hesitant reply. "Maybe," I responded, and that was the spark. Our conversations turned intimate over weeks, late-night exchanges filled with teasing words, suggestive photos he'd send of his shadowed torso, the strong line of his jaw, the hint of a tribal tattoo peeking from his sleeve, his skin glistening with what I imagined was sweat from a workout. I'd send him pictures too, nothing explicit but enough to feel daring, my lips parted in a coy smile, the curve of my shoulder in a silk camisole, my legs stretched out on the couch with a glass of wine in hand, the hem of my nightgown riding up just enough to tease. Things I'd never dare say or show to Mark, things that made me feel alive, reckless, wanted in a way I hadn't since our early days together. He told me he was 35, lived in Marseille, a city I'd never visited, a port town with a reputation for passion and secrets, and that distance felt safe, a buffer that let me indulge without consequence. Just words on a screen, I told myself, a game to spice up my dull nights, a fantasy I could control. But the more we talked, the more his voice in my head became a siren call, his descriptions of his life, nights on his balcony overlooking the sea, the taste of anise liqueur on his lips, painting a world I yearned to step into. He asked about my desires, my fantasies, and I found myself confessing things I'd buried. My need for spontaneity, my craving for a touch that wasn't so gentle, so predictable. The chats grew bolder, his messages laced with promises of what he'd do if we met, and I'd lie in bed, my body tingling, my mind racing, knowing I was teetering on the edge of something dangerous. The night I crossed the line came when Mark had to leave for a business trip to Strasbourg, A rare weekend apart that left the house eerily quiet, the silence amplifying my restless thoughts. I told myself I'd never meet Lucas in real life, that our connection would stay virtual, a fantasy I could lock away when the sun rose. But late Friday night, after a glass of Bordeaux too many, the wine loosening my inhibitions, I found myself booking a train ticket to Marseille, my heart pounding with a mix of fear and exhilaration, my fingers shaking as I confirmed the reservation. I lied to Mark, texting him that I was visiting my friend Claire in Toulouse for a girls' weekend. A cover story he accepted without question, his reply a simple, "Have fun, my darling." His trust in me a weight on my chest that I ignored. When I stepped off the train in Marseille, the salty sea air hitting my face, the hum of the port filling my ears, I saw him, Lucas, leaning against a lamppost taller than I'd imagined, his dark hair tousled by the breeze, his green eyes locking onto mine with a hunger that made my knees weak and my breath catch. He wore a fitted black shirt that hugged his frame, a leather jacket slung over one shoulder, and his smile was all mischief as he said, "You're more beautiful than your photos," his voice low and rich, sending a shiver down my spine. All my self-control disappeared the moment he took my hand, his grip firm, his thumb brushing my wrist in a way that felt electric. We took a taxi to a boutique hotel overlooking the old port. The room small but luxurious, the bed draped in crisp white linens, the windows open to the sound of waves and distant laughter. The weekend was a blur of passion, a descent into a world I'd only dreamed of. The first time was urgent, desperate. His hands on my waist as he pulled me close, his lips tracing a burning path from my neck to my collarbone, my fingers digging into his back as we fell onto the bed, the sheets tangling around us. I felt his breath hot against my skin, his hands roaming with a boldness Mark never dared, my body arching into his as the guilt tried to surface but was drowned by the heat of the moment, the thrill of the forbidden. We spent hours exploring each other, his whispers in my ear promising more. "I'll make you forget everything else," my sighs filling the room as we moved together, the rhythm of our bodies a dance I'd never known with Mark, a wild, unrestrained connection that left me trembling. Saturday night, after a dinner of seafood and wine on the balcony, we returned to the room, the city lights reflecting in his eyes as he pressed me against the window, his hands sliding under my dress, my legs wrapping around him as he kissed me deeply, the glass cool against my back, the danger of being seen only heightening the intensity. Sunday morning we lay tangled in the sheets, his fingers tracing the curve of my hip, his lips brushing my shoulder, his touch lingering as he murmured my name. My real name, not the username I'd hidden behind. And the worst part? I didn't feel guilty, not then. I felt a wild, intoxicating freedom, a side of myself I'd buried for years unleashed in the arms of a stranger. A part of me that reveled in the recklessness, the desire, the escape from the life I'd built. The lies began to pile up. A fragile house of cards I prayed wouldn't collapse under the weight of my deception. I returned home Monday, my skin still tingling from Lucas's touch, my mind replaying every kiss, every caress, every moment I'd surrendered to him. I told Mark I'd had a great time with Claire, spinning tales of shopping on St. Rome Street and sipping coffee with milk, and he kissed me when he got home, his lips familiar and warm, his arms wrapping around me as he asked about my trip. But for the first time I felt sick with guilt. The taste of Lucas still lingering in my memory, the scent of his cologne clinging to my hair, the memory of his hands on my body, a betrayal I couldn't wash away. That night my phone buzzed on the nightstand, Lucas texting me a photo of the harbor at dusk, a message beneath it, "Come back soon. I need you." My heart raced, my fingers hovering over the screen wanting to say no, to end it, to reclaim the life I'd promised Mark. But deep down I knew I wouldn't. The thrill of him, the way he made me feel, desired, alive, untethered, was too powerful, a drug I couldn't quit, a fire that burned hotter with every memory. I lied to Mark again the next month, claiming a work retreat in Aix-en-Provence, and met Lucas in a hotel in Nice, the air thick with the scent of jasmine and the promise of another escape. We barely made it to the room before he was on me, his hands sliding under my dress, my legs wrapping around him as he pressed me against the wall, the intensity of our reunion making my head spin, my breath hitching as he kissed me with a hunger that consumed me. The nights blurred into a pattern, stolen weekends, secret rendezvous, each encounter more daring than the last. Once, in a secluded cabin near the Alps, we spent a weekend lost in each other, the fireplace crackling as he traced every inch of my skin with his lips, his hands firm on my thighs, my body trembling under his touch, the world outside forgotten as snow fell silently beyond the windows. Another time in a hotel overlooking the Rhône in Avignon, we bathed together, the water warm against our skin, his hands washing me with a tenderness that contrasted with the wildness of our nights, my heart racing as I let myself fall deeper into him, the steam rising around us like a veil hiding my shame. What started as one night turned into a dangerous game I couldn't stop, a spiral of desire and deceit that consumed me, pulling me further from the woman I'd been. I'd lie awake beside Mark, his arm around me, his warmth a cruel reminder of the life I was betraying, and imagine Lucas's hands on me, his voice in my ear, his body pressed against mine in ways that made my skin flush even now. I'd meet Lucas whenever I could. Weekend getaways to coastal towns like Cassis, stolen afternoons in hotel rooms in Montpellier, even a reckless drive to his apartment in Marseille when Mark was at a conference. One afternoon, in a dimly lit room with velvet curtains in Cannes, he blindfolded me with a silk scarf, his fingers teasing my skin as he whispered promises, my senses heightened by the darkness, my breath catching as he took me to new heights of pleasure, the guilt a distant echo I ignored, my body responding with a fervor I'd forgotten I possessed. Another time in a hotel suite in Lyon itself, dangerously close to home, we danced in the room, the radio playing a sultry ballad, his hands guiding my hips, my head tilting back as he kissed my throat, the risk of discovery making my pulse race. I'd return home, my body marked by his touch, hickeys hidden under scarves, a faint bruise on my inner thigh, the scent of his aftershave lingering on my skin, and lie to Mark, my voice steady as I kissed him, my mind still with Lucas, my heart torn between the two men who defined my world. The close calls grew more frequent, more terrifying. Once Mark called while I was in Lucas's bed, my phone vibrating on the nightstand as Lucas's lips were on my neck, his hands on my waist, and I fumbled an excuse about being at a noisy cafe, my voice shaking as I prayed Mark wouldn't hear the lie. Another time I forgot to delete a text from Lucas, "Can't wait to taste you again," and Mark asked who Luke was, my heart stopping until I laughed it off as a new client, my smile forced as I changed the subject. Each moment tightened the noose around my neck, the fear of exposure mingling with the thrill, but the fire between Lucas and me burned too bright, too hot to extinguish, a flame I fed with every lie, every stolen moment. Eventually Lucas moved on. One gray afternoon his messages stopped, replaced by a curt note that shattered the illusion. "It was fun, but I've met someone. Take care of yourself." I cried, sitting on the bathroom floor, tears streaming down my face, the memory of his touch fading, replaced by the weight of my shame, the realization of how far I had fallen. I cried not because I lost him, though the sting of rejection was real, but because I saw the depth of my betrayal, the chasm I'd created between the woman I was and the woman I'd become. Mark still loves me, still trusts me, still has no idea, his kisses as tender as ever, his notes as sweet. "You are my light," he wrote yesterday, his eyes full of a devotion I don't deserve, a devotion that breaks my heart every time I meet his gaze. I tell myself I'll never do it again, that I'll be the wife he believes I am, that I'll bury this secret and rebuild our life, fill the nursery we dreamed of, reclaim the love we once had. I've thrown myself into our marriage, cooking his favorite dishes, planning weekend getaways to the countryside, holding his hand a little tighter, hoping that love, real love, can heal the wounds I've inflicted. But every time I'm alone at night, the house silent, Mark asleep beside me, his arm heavy with trust across my waist, I wonder, will I? The thought of Lucas, of that wild, reckless freedom, creeps into my mind, a temptation I can't fully banish, a shadow that lingers, whispering that I might fall again, that I might crave that fire once more, that the woman who surrendered to a stranger might still lurk within me, waiting for the next spark to ignite. I think about the life Mark and I had, the life we still have, and it breaks me into pieces I can't put back together. I remember the mornings we'd wake up tangled in each other's arms, the sun filtering through the wooden shutters, Mark's hands gentle on my skin as we made love, slow and tender, his whispers in my ear, "You are everything to me," making me feel cherished like I was the only woman in the world. I remember the nights we'd cook together, him sneaking a taste of my vegetable stew while I swatted him with a wooden spoon, me laughing as he burned the baguette for the third time that month, the kitchen filled with the warmth of our shared laughter, the scent of garlic and herbs. I remember the way he held me after the miscarriage, his arms strong around me as I sobbed into his chest, his voice steady as he promised we'd try again, that we'd have a family someday, that we'd be okay, his tears mingling with mine. I remember our wedding day, the way he looked at me as I walked down the aisle, his eyes shining with love, his vows promising a lifetime of devotion, a lifetime I'm now betraying with every memory of Lucas, every lingering thought of what I did. Those memories feel tainted now, every smile a reminder of my betrayal, every touch a lie I don't deserve, every moment a dagger in my heart that twists deeper with every passing day, every quiet night, every unanswered prayer for forgiveness. The guilt is a constant ache, a shadow that follows me everywhere, a weight that grows heavier with every sunrise. I see traces of Lucas sometimes, on social media when I can't resist a peek, his profile a reminder of the man who unraveled me, a photo of him on a beach with a new woman, or in the city when I imagine his face in a crowd at the market, his green eyes haunting me. Every time my heart stops, the memory of our nights flashing through me like a blade, cutting deeper with every glance, every fleeting moment our paths might have crossed in my mind. He looks at me with a knowing smirk in my memories, a reminder of the power he held, a silent threat that he could destroy me with a single word if he chose, that he could tell Mark everything and shatter my world in an instant. And I look away, my hands trembling, praying he'll stay away, praying he'll keep his silence, praying I'll never see him again. Mark notices my unease sometimes, asks if I'm okay, his concern deepening my shame, his voice gentle as he brushes a strand of hair from my face, his touch a reminder of the love I don't deserve, a love I've stained with my actions. I'm fine, I lie, forcing a smile, my voice hollow, my heart breaking as I speak, and he believes me because he trusts me, because he loves me, because he has no reason to doubt me, no reason to think I'm anything less than the woman he married. But I'm not fine. I'm a liar, a cheater, a woman who's destroyed the best thing she ever had, a woman who's betrayed the man who loves her more than anything, a woman who's lost herself in a fantasy that became a nightmare I can't wake from. I think about confessing, spilling everything, every hotel room, every kiss, every lie, begging for forgiveness, letting the truth set me free or destroy me if that's what it takes, but I can't. I can't bear the thought of Mark looking at me with disgust, of him walking away, of losing the only good thing I have left in my life, the only thing that keeps me grounded, the only thing that reminds me of who I used to be. So I keep my secret, let it fester, let it rot inside me, knowing it's the punishment I deserve, knowing it's the price I'll pay for the rest of my life, a price I'll pay in silence, in shame, in the dark of every sleepless night, every moment I see Mark's trusting smile. Every night as Mark sleeps beside me, his arm around me, his warmth a comfort I don't deserve, a sanctuary I've defiled with my actions, I lie awake, the weight of my sins pressing down on me like a boulder, crushing me with every breath. I think about Lucas, about the affair, about the hotel rooms, about the lies I've told, the life I've tainted, the love I've betrayed. I think about Mark, about the man I've hurt, the man who loves me more than I'll ever deserve, the man who holds me close even now, unaware of the woman I've become, unaware of the monster I've let myself be. I'll carry this secret to my grave, a shadow I can't escape, a truth I'll never speak, a penance I'll endure in silence, a torment that will haunt me until the day I die. And maybe that's my fate, a life of silent suffering, a love I can never truly accept, a husband I can never truly deserve, a fantasy that became a reality I can never undo, a fire that still smolders beneath the ashes of my guilt.